Hello and welcome back to the A.M.I.R YouTube channel. Today's questions: does Israel have the most moral army in the world? And should America break free from supporting Israel? The United States has backed and supported Israel from its beginning in 1948. But is it now time for America to break free from Israel? For decades, Israel has stated that it has the most moral army in the world.
We regret every loss of life, but I can tell you categorically, there is no army in the world that acts in a more moral fashion than the army of Israel.
But just because you declare a statement does not make it a fact or even a true statement. This is a political slogan that has been made countless of times by Israel officials. But again, just because you make a statement doesn't make it a true statement. This reminds me of a very old American saying that my mama used to say: actions speak louder than words. And the actions of the Israeli armed forces clearly show that this narrative of morality is a false one. We can look at decades of atrocities the Israeli military has carried out over the decades. But let's just take a look at the very latest that shows the Israeli military's lack of moral character. The first and foremost, obviously, is the mass killings and murder of innocent men, women, and children in the invasion of Gaza, with the latest death count exceeding 70,000 innocent souls.
How high is the death toll in Gaza really? The numbers released by the Hamas-run Ministry of Health have been dismissed by the Israeli government as being exaggerated. But recent research suggests that it might be the opposite. A new study from the University of London researcher Michael Spagat finds that between October 7th, 2023 and January 5th, 2025, some 75,200 Palestinians in Gaza died a violent death as a direct result of the war. This figure is about 40% higher than the one reported by Gaza's Ministry of Health for the same period at 45,650 deaths. The ministry says 58,000 Palestinians have been killed since October 2023, but extrapolating numbers from the research puts the current Gaza death toll at over 100,000 people. Now, Michael Spagat is a professor of economics and researcher of armed conflict at the University of London. He has led a study analyzing war-related deaths in Gaza, and he joins us now to tell us more. You recently released this study, which says that the overall number of Palestinians killed since the war in Gaza broke out back in 2023 is actually far higher than the estimates from the Hamas-run Gaza Ministry of Health. What's the top takeaway from this study?
I would say that there are three. First, you just said it, that the Ministry of Health is not undercounting the number of deaths. We found a substantially larger number of deaths than the numbers from the Ministry of Health. On the other hand, we find that the demographics put out by the Ministry of Health are broadly accurate. That is the percentage of women, children, and elderly, which we found to be around 56%. And third, we've got the first ever estimate of nonviolent deaths in the war. And if you take that estimate and subtract off the number of deaths that you would expect to have occurred without the war, we get about 8,500 nonviolent excess deaths, that is above baseline number of deaths.
So then, the Hamas-run Gaza Ministry of Health, it says that the number of those killed in Gaza is over 58,000. Your study estimates it's more than 75,000. Their figures have been generally accepted as relatively accurate in the past. Why might their estimates be much lower than the reality?
Because they're trying to capture deaths one by one. If you look at the information that they put out, it's a list. It lists individual people killed, and it's not really possible to capture every single death one by one in the chaotic environment of war. They're doing, I think, a remarkable job capturing what they are able to capture and to put it out with a degree of transparency that they've been putting out, but I think it's just not possible in real time to capture everything.
Israel claims at least 20,000 of those killed are Hamas operatives in Gaza. Can you verify that?
No, I can't verify that. We don't have a question on our survey that asks whether people were civilians or combatants. What I would say is that Israel has never really provided any evidence to back up that figure. It's just kind of a number that they put out there. Now, they may have behind the scenes some evidence, but if so, I would like to see it. So I'm skeptical of that number, but based on our survey, we can't really address that issue directly.
Another example of immorality of the Israeli military is the restriction of food, water, and medical aid to the civilians during the invasion of Gaza.
Welcome back. U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and Ambassador Mike Huckabee are in Gaza today. They visited a controversial aid distribution site run by a U.S.-Israel-backed humanitarian foundation. The visit comes as the UN says more than 1,300 Palestinians have been killed while seeking aid in that enclave since late May. It says most have been killed by the Israeli military. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Deborah Pata brings us more from Jerusalem.
Israel wants the world to believe there is no starvation in Gaza. But look at this. Palestinians so hungry, they've been reduced to fighting each other for food. In a battle where only the strongest survive, the rest forced to pick up scraps in the dirt. Now, to prove that they are not restricting aid, the IDF took us to an aid collection point just inside Gaza. It was only 15 miles away from that humiliating scramble for aid, with enough food and water to fill 800 trucks. They let us look around but refused to answer any questions on camera, simply insisting that their responsibility to deliver aid to Gazans stops here, and blaming the United Nations for not collecting and distributing it fast enough. In fact, aid organizations have told us that Israel is still making the distribution of food inside Gaza almost impossible. It takes hours to get trucks to centers. They're being held up at checkpoints, and the humanitarian pauses are only in a few areas. Everywhere else in Gaza is still at war.
Next, let's take a look at the treatment of prisoners.
But CNN has gained exclusive evidence of Palestinian prisoner abuse. Away from the military facility, near the beaches of Tel Aviv, one young Israeli army reservist agreed to speak about scores of detainees at Sedi Taman. He says are kept in cages or pens, constantly shackled and blindfolded, many for weeks on end. We've hidden his identity and voice to shield him from prosecution.
We were told they are not allowed to move and must sit upright. They're not allowed to talk or peek under their blindfolds.
And what happened if they did do that? What kind of punishments were meted out?
We were allowed to pick out problematic people and punish them, having them stand with their hands above their heads for an unlimited time. If they didn't keep their hands up, we could zip tie them to the fence.
The Israeli military says detainees are handcuffed based on their risk level and health status. But the account tallies with photographic evidence obtained by CNN of Palestinian detainees inside Sedi Taman, and with hand and wrist injuries shown to CNN by dozens of Palestinians released back into Gaza. I was zip-tied and blindfolded, says this former detainee, and tortured in a way I never imagined. One source telling us the restraints were so tight they had to amputate a man's hand. And thousands detained for interrogation, transported to facilities like Sedi Taman, where one Israeli guard now tells CNN prisoners are routinely beaten. We've hidden his identity and voice too.
You can take them out and hit them maybe 4 or 5 times with a club. It's not done in the face, so you don't see blood. The detainees lie belly down, being hit and kicked, people screaming and dogs barking at them. It's terrifying. Some detainees are taken away and beaten really hard, so bones and teeth are broken.
Now let's look at the very latest leaked prisoner abuse by an Israeli major general in the IDF.
The Israeli military's legal chief is in prison and the subject of a legal and political storm. At issue is this leaked video of Israeli soldiers raping a Palestinian detainee from Gaza in the notorious Sedi Taman military base. In her resignation letter on Friday, Major General Yifat Tomer Yerushalmi admits she leaked this video to the media in August 2024 to defend the Israeli army's law enforcement authorities. the investigation into the leak is sidestepping the actual rape and other crimes that are happening in Israeli prisons like this one. The UN's Independent Commission of Inquiry says Israel's gender-based and sexual violence against Palestinian detainees is widespread and systematic.
Now let's take a look at the Palestinian West Bank, where the Israeli settler incursion still occurs on Palestinian land, and Israeli settler violence has intensified with the assistance of the Israeli military.
Israeli settlers and military forces across the occupied West Bank. Settlers have been targeting Palestinians at the height of the olive harvest. In Bethlehem, they shot and injured 3 farmers, raiding their land and releasing their livestock. And Israeli forces have conducted large-scale raids in several areas, including Ramallah, Nablus, and Jenin. They've made several arrests. And footage has emerged of Israeli settlers raiding a Palestinian farm, attacking and killing livestock. The incident occurred in Hebron on Monday. Local media report that the settlers were protected by Israeli soldiers. They fired gas canisters towards the farmer's house, injuring his children.
Finally, let's look at the financial factor of the Israeli relationship with the United States. America has invested billions of dollars to the Israeli military over the many decades. In 2018, MSNBC discussed how much the U.S. was giving at that time to Israel.
All right, so what's the foreign aid? What's the billions of dollars that Sanders is talking about? Here's the deal. The United States has been sending money to Israel for decades. In fact, Israel has been the largest cumulative recipient of U.S. foreign assistance since World War II. Now, so far, Israel has racked up a total of approximately $142.3 billion in aid. This is bilateral assistance, missile defense funding, and other forms of military aid and cash aid. Just to give you the scope of how much this is annually, Israel received $3.2 billion in aid in the fiscal year 2017 alone. The same year, the U.S. spent more than $46 billion in total foreign aid. About 7% of that went to Israel. The only 2 countries in 2017 that received more were Afghanistan and Iraq. In 2016, the United States formally signed a foreign aid agreement with Israel. It's the largest aid package in American history. It requires the United States to send $38 billion in military aid to Israel over a 10-year period, and it prohibits any future president from withdrawing from the agreement until 2026.
This current year, even more military equipment is being sold to Israel and approved by the Trump administration.
Reports in the US media say President Trump's administration is seeking approval from lawmakers in Congress to sell Israel around $6 billion worth of military equipment. The planned package is reported to include 30 Apache attack helicopters at the cost of $3.6 billion, nearly doubling Israel's current stocks. The sale also includes 3,200 assault vehicles for the Israeli Defense Forces, with a price tag of $1.9 billion.
Billions of American tax dollars are being used for the armament of the Israeli military, air, naval, and ground forces, and these weapons are being used to massacre, maim, and torture civilians who just want to live and exist on their own land. It is time for Americans to wake up and see that arming and supplying Israel's military is financing more atrocities on human life. As an American, I feel we must invest in our own nation and address the serious needs of our own citizens in our own country, and make peace with all nations who choose to make peace with us. But as long as our nation supplies the weapons that kill and slaughter innocent people overseas, America will never be at peace. I have added all the links from this video in the description below, so that you can go to these YouTube channels and watch their original content. Thank you for taking time to watch, and please subscribe to this channel and share it with others in order to get the latest uploads on the geopolitical landscape that our mainstream media chooses not to cover. See you next time. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed day.